You're sitting in a comfortable room, the lighting dim and golden. Your eyelids feel heavy, your breathing has slowed to a gentle rhythm, and someone's voice, calm and soothing, seems to drift through your consciousness like honey through warm tea. You're aware of everything around you, yet somehow deeply relaxed, as if you're floating in that dreamy space between waking and sleeping. This is hypnosis, but not the dramatic, theatrical version you've seen in movies, where pocket watches swing like pendulums and people cluck like chickens on command. Real hypnosis is far more subtle, far more beautiful, and infinitely more interesting than Hollywood would have you believe. Before we begin this journey together, drop a comment below about your own experiences with trance-like states. I'd love to hear your stories. Now let's step into the soft, mysterious landscape of the hypnotized mind. Chapter 1: Ancient Whispers and Sacred Dreams. The word hypnosis itself comes from the Greek god Hypnos, the personification of sleep, brother to Thanatos, death, and son of Nyx, the night. Even the ancient Greeks understood that there was something magical about these twilight states of consciousness. But long before the Greeks gave it a name, humans have been fascinated by the power of trance. Picture the flickering flames of a prehistoric campfire, shadows dancing on cave walls as a shaman's voice rises and falls in hypnotic rhythm. The repetitive beat of drums, the chanting that seems to bypass the conscious mind and speak directly to something deeper within us. In ancient Egypt, priest healers would guide the sick into temple sleep, a sacred trance where healing dreams would visit the afflicted. These weren't just religious ceremonies. They were sophisticated psychological interventions that understood something profound about the connection between mind and body, between belief and healing. The temples of Asclepius in ancient Greece took this further. Imagine walking into one of these healing sanctuaries as twilight approaches. The air is heavy with frankincense, and soft voices murmur prayers and incantations. Patients would be led through elaborate rituals designed to induce what we now recognize as hypnotic states. They'd sleep in the temple's sacred chambers, expecting divine dreams that would bring healing. And remarkably often, they were healed. What these ancient practitioners understood intuitively was that the mind has layers, conscious and unconscious, waking and dreaming, and that in certain altered states, healing could occur in ways that defied ordinary understanding. They knew that words spoken to a relaxed, receptive mind could plant seeds of change that would bloom into real, physical transformation. Moving through history, we find similar practices everywhere humans gathered. Aboriginal dreamtime journeys, Hindu yogic practices, Sufi whirling ceremonies, Native American vision quests. All of these traditions recognize that consciousness isn't fixed, that it can be gently guided into states where profound healing and insight become possible. But it wasn't until the 18th century that someone would try to understand this ancient mystery through the lens of emerging scientific thought. And that someone was a German doctor named Franz Anton Mesmer, whose name would become synonymous with the hypnotic arts. Chapter 2: Mesmer's Magnetic Dreams. Paris, 1778. The City of Lights is buzzing with revolutionary ideas, and in an elegant salon on the Place Vendôme, something extraordinary is happening. Dr. Franz Anton Mesmer, a tall, imposing figure dressed in flowing robes of lilac silk, moves gracefully between his patients. In his hands, he holds iron rods connected to a large wooden tub filled with what he calls magnetized water. Mesmer believed he had discovered an invisible force he called animal magnetism, a cosmic fluid that flowed through all living things and could be directed through the healer's touch. His treatment sessions were theatrical affairs. Patients would gather around the baquet, his magnetic tub, holding iron rods in each other's hands, creating what he believed was a circuit of healing energy. The room would be dimly lit, heavy curtains blocking the harsh daylight. Soft music played, often a glass harmonica, whose ethereal tones seemed to float through the air like whispered secrets. Mesmer would emerge from behind a curtain, his presence commanding yet gentle, and begin his work. He would approach each patient slowly, his eyes fixed on theirs, speaking in low, measured tones. "Feel the magnetic force flowing through you," he would say, his voice barely above a whisper. "Let it wash over you like warm water, dissolving all tension, all pain." His hands would hover over their bodies, never quite touching, yet patients would report waves of heat, tingling sensations, sometimes convulsions followed by profound peace. What Mesmer didn't realize was that he had stumbled upon something far more powerful than magnetic fluid. He had discovered the incredible susceptibility of the human mind to suggestion, the healing power of expectation, and the profound physiological changes that can occur when we enter altered states of consciousness. His patients experienced what he called magnetic crises, dramatic moments where they would convulse, cry, or fall into deep trances, only to emerge feeling remarkably better. Chronic pain would vanish, paralyzed limbs would regain movement, and psychological ailments would simply melt away. The medical establishment was baffled and, ultimately, dismissive. A royal commission, including Benjamin Franklin, investigated Mesmer's claims and concluded that his cures were due to imagination rather than magnetism. They were right about the magnetism, but they missed the profound truth about imagination. What they dismissed as merely imagination was actually one of the most powerful forces in human healing, the ability of the mind to create real, measurable changes in the body through belief, expectation, and the gentle guidance of altered consciousness. Mesmer's work planted seeds that would bloom into modern hypnosis, but it would take decades for those seeds to grow into something the medical world could accept. His legacy lived on in the word mesmerize, to hold spellbound, to captivate completely. Even today, when we say someone is mesmerizing, we're paying homage to this flamboyant doctor who stumbled upon one of consciousness's greatest mysteries. But the story doesn't end in Paris salons. It travels across the English Channel into the soot-stained hospitals of industrial Britain, where a Scottish surgeon named James Braid would transform mesmerism into something the medical world could finally embrace. Chapter 3: The Birth of Modern Hypnosis. Manchester, 1841. The Industrial Revolution has transformed this English city into a maze of smoking factories and crowded tenements. In this grimy urban landscape, Dr. James Braid, a practical Scottish surgeon with a keen scientific mind, is about to change history. Braid was initially a skeptic when he attended a demonstration of mesmerism by Charles Lafontaine, a traveling performer. He went expecting to debunk what he saw as theatrical nonsense, but something happened that night that changed his perspective forever. As he watched people enter deep trances, their eyes fluttering closed, their bodies becoming limp and responsive to suggestion, Braid realized he was witnessing something real, something that had nothing to do with magnetic fluid and everything to do with the workings of the human mind. Picture Braid in his modest medical office, the gaslight casting warm shadows on the walls as he begins his own experiments. Unlike Mesmer's theatrical performances, Braid's approach was methodical, scientific. He would seat his patients comfortably and ask them to focus their gaze on a bright object, often a lancet case held just above eye level, close enough that focusing on it would strain the eyes. "Look steadily at this object," he would say in his measured Scottish brogue. "Don't let your eyes wander. Notice how your eyelids are beginning to feel heavy, how they want to blink more and more frequently." Within minutes, many patients would enter what Braid called nervous sleep, a state that seemed to be neither ordinary sleep nor full wakefulness. Braid made a crucial discovery. This state could be induced without any mysterious magnetic forces. It was a natural phenomenon of the nervous system, something that could be studied, understood, and replicated. He coined the term hypnosis from the Greek word for sleep. though he later realized that hypnosis wasn't actually sleep at all, but something entirely different, a unique state of consciousness with its own characteristics and possibilities. In this hypnotic state, Braid found that patients could undergo minor surgical procedures without pain. He could remove teeth, drain abscesses, and perform other operations while his patients remained in peaceful trance. More remarkably, he discovered that suggestions given during hypnosis could have lasting effects. He could suggest that a patient's pain would disappear, and it would. He could suggest that they would sleep better, eat less, or overcome various ailments, and these changes would persist long after the hypnotic session ended. Word of Braid's work spread through Victorian medical circles like ripples in a pond. Here was something that worked, reliably, repeatedly, and without the mystical trappings that had made mesmerism so easy to dismiss. Hypnosis was becoming respectable. But it was in the hospitals of Nancy and Paris that hypnosis would truly come of age. In Nancy, Dr. Hippolyte Bernheim was treating thousands of patients with hypnosis, achieving remarkable success rates with conditions ranging from hysteria to chronic pain. He developed what became known as the Nancy School approach, emphasizing suggestion as the key mechanism of hypnosis. Meanwhile, in Paris, the famous neurologist Jean-Martin Charcot was studying hypnosis at the Salpêtrière Hospital, treating it as a neurological phenomenon related to hysteria. His dramatic public demonstrations, attended by the intellectual elite of Paris, made hypnosis fashionable among the educated classes. Picture these Victorian-era sessions. Gaslit consulting rooms filled with the scent of carbolic acid and lavender, patients in their heavy woolen clothing settling into leather chairs, and physicians in their formal black coats speaking in careful, measured tones about the power of suggestion and the mysteries of the unconscious mind. It was during this period that a young neurologist named Sigmund Freud traveled to Paris to study with Charcot. Freud was fascinated by hypnosis and initially used it extensively in his practice, though he would later abandon hypnosis in favor of psychoanalysis. His early work with hypnotized patients gave him crucial insights into the unconscious mind that would revolutionize psychology. As the 19th century drew to a close, hypnosis had transformed from Mesmer's magnetic spectacle into a legitimate medical tool. But its greatest tests were yet to come. The horrors of 2 world wars would provide the ultimate proving ground for hypnosis as a healing art. As shell-shocked soldiers returned from the trenches with wounds that couldn't be seen, but ran deeper than any physical injury. Chapter 4: Hypnosis in the Shadows of War. The year is 1917, and in a makeshift hospital behind the Western Front, an unusual form of healing is taking place. The tent walls flutter in the cold French wind, and inside, men who have seen too much sit in chairs facing a doctor whose voice carries the gentle authority of deep compassion. These are the shell-shocked soldiers of World War I, men whose minds have been shattered not by bullets or shrapnel, but by the relentless bombardment of modern warfare. They cannot speak, cannot walk, cannot stop their hands from shaking. Traditional medicine has little to offer them, but hypnosis is proving to be their salvation. Dr. William Brown, working with British forces, discovered that soldiers who had lost their voices to psychological trauma could speak normally while hypnotized. Men paralyzed by terror could walk, run, even dance in trance states. Most remarkably, the therapeutic benefits often persisted after they awakened from hypnosis. Picture these sessions in the dim light of field hospitals. The sounds of distant artillery create an ominous backdrop as Dr. Brown's voice cuts through the chaos. You are safe now. The sounds of battle are growing fainter, like distant thunder. Your body is remembering how to be peaceful, how to be whole. The soldiers would sink into their chairs, their breathing deepening, their clenched muscles finally relaxing. In hypnosis, they could revisit their traumatic experiences without being overwhelmed by them. They could process the horror, integrate it, and emerge with renewed strength to face their demons. This was perhaps the first large-scale use of what we now call trauma therapy. These pioneering doctors were discovering that the mind's ability to dissociate, to protect itself by splitting off from unbearable experiences, could be harnessed therapeutically. Hypnosis provided a bridge between the conscious mind that couldn't cope and the deeper wisdom that could heal. The work continued during World War II, where military psychiatrists like Dr. Roy Grinker and Dr. John Spiegel used hypnosis to treat what they called war neurosis. They found that soldiers could be rapidly returned to duty after hypnotic treatment that might have taken months with conventional therapy. One particularly moving account describes a pilot who had been shot down over Germany and could no longer fly without panic attacks. Under hypnosis, he was able to relive his crash landing in vivid detail, experiencing all the terror and helplessness he had suppressed. But this time, in the safety of the therapeutic relationship, he could also experience his survival, his courage, his triumph over death itself. When he emerged from hypnosis, he was ready to fly again. These wartime applications taught medical professionals something profound. Hypnosis wasn't just about relaxation or suggestion. It was a powerful tool for accessing and healing the deepest wounds of the psyche. The mind's natural ability to enter trance states wasn't a curiosity or entertainment. It was an evolutionary gift that allowed humans to survive the unsurvivable and heal the unhealable. But war also revealed hypnosis's darker potential. There were experiments in using hypnosis for interrogation, attempts to create hypnoprogramming for espionage, and investigations into whether hypnosis could be used to make people act against their will. These shadowy applications would later fuel public fears and misconceptions about hypnosis that persist to this day. The reality, as researchers discovered, is that hypnosis cannot force someone to violate their core values or moral beliefs. A person cannot be hypnotized to commit murder unless they already have murderous inclinations. The Hollywood image of the hypnotized assassin is pure fiction. But the fear of mind control became deeply embedded in popular culture, creating a tension between hypnosis as healing art and hypnosis as imagined instrument of manipulation. As soldiers returned from war and civilian life resumed, hypnosis began to find new applications. The 1950s and 60s would see an explosion of interest in hypnosis for everything from childbirth to weight loss, from smoking cessation to phobia treatment. The stage was set for hypnosis to move out of the hospital and into mainstream therapeutic practice. Chapter 5: The Theater of the Mind. Las Vegas, 1955. The neon lights of the Strip cast rainbow shadows on the desert sand, and inside the plush showrooms, a different kind of entertainment is captivating audiences. On stage, a man in an elegant tuxedo speaks in smooth, commanding tones to a line of volunteers who seem to hang on his every word. "When I snap my fingers, you will believe you are the world's greatest opera singer," he says. Snap. Suddenly, a shy accountant from Toledo is belting out an aria with the passion of Pavarotti, while the audience erupts in laughter and applause. This is the golden age of stage hypnosis, when performers like Ormond McGill, the dean of American hypnotists, were packing theaters from coast to coast. But what's really happening on that stage tells us something profound about the nature of human consciousness and social behavior. The volunteers aren't helpless victims of mind control. They're willing participants in a social contract, a form of sanctioned play acting that allows them to behave in ways they might secretly desire, but would never permit themselves in ordinary circumstances. The shy accountant has probably always dreamed of performing but lacked the courage. Hypnosis gives him permission and protection. If he makes a fool of himself, well, he was hypnotized. It wasn't really him. Let's step into that Las Vegas showroom for a moment. The air is thick with cigarette smoke and anticipation. The hypnotist's voice fills the space like velvet. You're feeling very relaxed, very comfortable. Your eyelids are growing heavy, so heavy that you can barely keep them open. The stage lights dim to a warm amber glow, and one by one, the volunteers' eyes flutter closed. What happens next isn't magic, though it can seem magical. The hypnotist is using a combination of suggestion, social pressure, expectation, and the volunteer's own willingness to enter an altered state. The funniest and most dramatic responses come from people who are naturally imaginative, socially confident, and willing to play along. You are now 5 years old, the hypnotist suggests, and watch as a business executive begins to speak in a childlike voice, curling up in his chair like a little boy. The audience laughs, but something deeper is happening. For a few moments, this man is accessing genuine childhood memories and behaviors, temporarily setting aside the complex social roles and inhibitions of his adult self. The real artistry of stage hypnosis lies not in controlling minds, but in creating a safe space where people can explore different aspects of their personality. The best stage hypnotists are part psychologist, part entertainer, and part anthropologist, understanding the delicate dynamics of group behavior and individual psychology. But there's a shadow side to this form of entertainment. Some performers pushed boundaries, humiliating volunteers or encouraging behavior that crossed ethical lines. Public concern about the potential for abuse led to regulation in many countries, and the popularity of stage hypnosis began to wane by the 1970s. However, the legacy of stage hypnosis is more complex than its critics suggest. For many people, seeing a hypnosis show was their first introduction to the idea that consciousness is malleable, that the mind has hidden capacities, that healing and change might be possible in ways they had never imagined. Dr. Milton Erickson, perhaps the most influential hypnotherapist of the 20th century, actually got his start as a stage performer. He learned to read people's body language, to pace his voice for maximum effect, to create rapport quickly with strangers. These skills, developed in the theater, would later revolutionize therapeutic hypnosis. Erickson understood that every person carries within themselves the resources for healing and change. His approach to hypnosis was less about imposing suggestions and more about helping people access their own inner wisdom. He would tell stories that seemed simple on the surface, but contained multiple layers of meaning, allowing each listener to find exactly what they needed to hear. Picture Dr. Erickson in his Phoenix office in the 1960s, partially paralyzed from childhood polio, but radiating an infectious vitality. His voice has a musical quality as he speaks to a patient struggling with chronic pain. There was once a woman who lived in a house with many rooms. Some rooms she visited daily, others she had forgotten entirely. One day she decided to explore a room she had never entered before, and there she found something wonderful. As the patient listens, her breathing deepens, her shoulders relax, and somehow, through the metaphor of the woman and her house, she begins to understand that her pain doesn't have to define her entire experience. There are other rooms in her consciousness where comfort and peace reside. This indirect, story-based approach to hypnosis would influence generations of therapists and mark a major shift from the authoritarian style of earlier practitioners to a more collaborative, respectful model of hypnotic healing. Chapter 6: The Science of Trance. Let's take a journey now into the most intimate theater of all, the human brain. Picture, if you will, the 3 pounds of soft tissue nestled within your skull, a galaxy of 86 billion neurons firing in patterns more complex than any computer ever built. Tonight, as you listen to these words, as you feel yourself settling deeper into relaxation, remarkable changes are occurring in this neural universe. Dr. Amir Raz at Columbia University has been using brain imaging technology to peer into the minds of people under hypnosis. And what he's discovered is reshaping our understanding of consciousness itself. When someone enters a hypnotic trance, it's not simply a matter of becoming relaxed or suggestible. Specific networks in the brain actually reconfigure themselves, creating a unique state of consciousness that's neither sleep nor ordinary wakefulness. Imagine looking at a brain scan of someone in deep hypnosis. The anterior cingulate cortex, the part of your brain that monitors conflicts and contradictions, shows decreased activity. This is why hypnotized individuals can accept suggestions that would normally seem illogical. If I told you right now that your left hand is becoming numb, your conscious mind would analyze this statement and likely reject it. But in hypnosis, with the brain's critic temporarily quieted, such suggestions can create real physical changes. Meanwhile, the brain regions responsible for focused attention become hyperactive, even as areas associated with self-consciousness and social awareness dim. It's as if someone has adjusted the lighting in a vast theater, spotlight bright on the stage of attention, while the audience of ordinary awareness fades into shadow. Dr. David Spiegel at Stanford University has spent decades mapping these neural changes. His research shows that people with high hypnotic susceptibility actually have structural differences in their brains. The rostrum, a small structure that connects the brain's two hemispheres, is significantly larger in highly hypnotizable individuals. This may explain why some people can sink into deep trance within moments, while others remain alertly aware, no matter how skilled the hypnotist. But what exactly does it feel like inside a hypnotized brain? Let's explore this from the inside out. As you begin to enter a hypnotic state, perhaps right now as you listen to the rhythm of these words, your brain waves start to shift. Beta waves associated with normal waking consciousness begin to give way to alpha waves, the same pattern seen in meditation and light relaxation. Your breathing naturally deepens, your heart rate slows, and stress hormones like cortisol begin to decrease in your bloodstream. There's a peculiar quality to hypnotic consciousness that's hard to describe but unmistakable once experienced. Time seems to become elastic. A 5-minute induction might feel like hours, or an hour-long session might seem to pass in moments. Your body might feel heavy as lead or light as a feather. Colors might seem more vivid, sounds more resonant, physical sensations more intense or completely absent. This altered perception isn't imagination. It's the result of real changes in how your brain processes sensory information. Under hypnosis, the brain's pain centers can literally stop registering pain signals. This is why hypnosis can be used as anesthesia for surgery, why women in hypnotic childbirth report comfortable births, why chronic pain sufferers find relief through trance states. Dr. Elvira Lang at Harvard Medical School has performed hundreds of surgical procedures using only hypnosis for pain control. Her patients remain conscious and alert throughout operations like thyroid surgery or vascular procedures, chatting calmly with the medical team while feeling no pain. The key is teaching them to dissociate, to psychologically separate from the area being operated on. Imagine that your neck is not really part of you right now, Dr. Lang might suggest. It's simply an object that we're working on, like a piece of machinery being repaired. You're floating comfortably above it all, watching from a safe distance. The brain, remarkably, can actually implement this metaphorical suggestion at a neurological level. But the science of hypnosis extends far beyond pain control. Research has shown that hypnotic suggestions can influence immune function, accelerate wound healing, reduce inflammation, and even alter gene expression. Dr. Janice Keuchel-Glaser's work at Ohio State University demonstrated that breast cancer patients who used self-hypnosis showed improved immune responses compared to control groups. The placebo effect, that mysterious phenomenon where dummy treatments produce real healing, appears to operate through many of the same mechanisms as hypnosis. Both involve the power of expectation and belief to create measurable biological changes. Both demonstrate that the boundary between mind and body is far more porous than we once believed. Perhaps most remarkably, modern neuroscience is confirming what ancient healers knew intuitively. Consciousness itself is a healing force. The focused attention and vivid imagery of hypnosis don't just change how we feel about our problems. They can literally rewire our neural networks, creating new patterns of thought, feeling, and behavior that persist long after the hypnotic session ends. Chapter 7: The Many Faces of Therapeutic Hypnosis. Dr. Sarah Chen settles into her comfortable office chair as her 3 p.m. appointment. Michael, a 45-year-old engineer who hasn't had a cigarette-free day in 20 years, closes his eyes and begins to breathe deeply. The afternoon sun filters through gauze curtains, casting everything in a warm, golden light that seems to encourage relaxation. "Just notice how comfortable you're becoming," Dr. Chen says, her voice taking on the rhythmic cadence that has become second nature after 15 years of practice. With each breath out, you can let go a little more, settling deeper into that chair as if it's perfectly molded to support you. This is clinical hypnotherapy in action, a far cry from the theatrical demonstrations of stage hypnosis or the mystical rituals of ancient healing temples. Modern therapeutic hypnosis is a sophisticated psychological intervention that combines the latest understanding of neuroscience with time-tested techniques for creating lasting behavioral change. Michael's journey to Dr. Chen's office began 6 months ago when his daughter asked him to walk her down the aisle at her wedding. The thought of standing at the altar, wheezing and coughing, finally motivated him to seek help. He tried patches, gum, pills, and sheer willpower. Nothing worked. His addiction felt stronger than his conscious desire to quit. Under hypnosis, Michael isn't unconscious or under Dr. Chen's control. Instead, he's in a state of focused relaxation where his usual mental barriers are more permeable. The critical, analytical part of his mind that might normally resist change is temporarily quieted, allowing him to access deeper resources for healing. You might be surprised to discover, Dr. Chen continues, that your unconscious mind already knows exactly how to be a non-smoker. After all, you were born a non-smoker. You spent the first 14 years of your life breathing clean, fresh air into healthy lungs. That non-smoker is still inside you, just waiting to emerge again. This is the art of therapeutic suggestion, planting seeds of change that align with the person's deepest values and desires. Rather than commanding Michael to stop smoking, Dr. Chen is helping him remember who he was before cigarettes became part of his identity. The applications of clinical hypnosis are remarkably diverse. Let's visit Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a pediatric psychologist who specializes in helping children overcome fears and anxiety. 8-year-old Emma sits cross-legged on a soft cushion, her eyes sparkling with curiosity rather than the terror that brought her to this office. Emma has been afraid of dogs since a frightening encounter with a large, aggressive animal 2 years ago. The phobia has grown to the point where she can't walk to school without having panic attacks at the sight of any dog, even tiny, friendly ones. "Tell me about your favorite place in the whole world," Dr. Rodriguez asks, and Emma's face lights up as she describes her grandmother's garden, with its butterfly bushes and trickling fountain. "Close your eyes and take yourself there right now. Can you smell the flowers? Can you hear the water flowing?" As Emma sinks into the memory, her breathing slows and her small body relaxes completely. In this state, Dr. Rodriguez will guide her through a series of carefully crafted visualizations. Emma will imagine herself feeling brave and confident, perhaps discovering that she has magical powers that protect her from all harm. She'll visualize friendly dogs approaching her in the garden, and in her imagination, she'll reach out and pet them, feeling surprised by their soft fur and gentle nature. These aren't just pleasant fantasies. The brain doesn't always distinguish clearly between vividly imagined experiences and real ones, especially when we're in altered states of consciousness. By repeatedly experiencing success and comfort with dogs in her imagination, Emma is literally rewiring her neural pathways, creating new associations that will serve her in real-world encounters. Across town, Dr. James Morrison is working with Lisa, a 35-year-old artist who has struggled with chronic insomnia for over a decade. The sleep medication her doctor prescribed leaves her groggy and dependent, but without it, she lies awake for hours, her mind racing with anxious thoughts about deadlines, relationships, and the state of the world. Your body knows exactly how to sleep. Dr. Morrison's voice drifts through the dimly lit room like a lullaby. Every cell in your body is designed to rest, to repair, to renew itself. You don't have to learn how to sleep. You just have to remember how to let go of trying so hard to sleep. Sleep hypnosis works by interrupting the cycle of anxiety that keeps insomniacs awake. The harder Lisa tries to fall asleep, the more alert she becomes. The more she worries about not sleeping, the more her nervous system stays activated in fight or flight mode. Hypnosis teaches her nervous system that bedtime is safe, that letting go of consciousness is natural and healing. Dr. Morrison guides Lisa through a progressive relaxation, starting with her toes and working upward. Notice how your toes are beginning to feel heavy and warm, as if they're sinking into the soft mattress. This feeling of heaviness is spreading to your feet now, your ankles, your calves. By the time he reaches her shoulders, Lisa's breathing has deepened into the rhythms of approaching sleep. But perhaps the most profound applications of therapeutic hypnosis involve trauma and emotional healing. Dr. Patricia Williams specializes in working with veterans returning from combat zones, using a technique called hypnotic regression to help them process experiences that are too overwhelming for ordinary conscious therapy. Staff Sergeant Robert Martinez sits in a leather recliner, his hands resting gently on his knees. 3 tours in Afghanistan have left him with PTSD symptoms that make it difficult to connect with his family or hold down a civilian job. Traditional talk therapy helped somewhat, but the nightmares and hypervigilance persist. You have a wise part of yourself that knows exactly what you need for healing, Dr. Williams says softly. This wise part has been with you through everything, every challenge, every triumph, every moment of courage. We're going to ask this wise part to guide us back to that difficult experience in a way that allows you to process it safely. Under hypnosis, Sergeant Martinez can revisit the traumatic incident without being overwhelmed by it. He can observe it from a safe psychological distance, almost as if he's watching a movie of someone else's experience. This dissociative quality of hypnosis allows the trauma to be processed and integrated without re-traumatizing the survivor. The session isn't about forgetting the trauma or pretending it didn't happen. Instead, it's about changing the emotional charge associated with the memory, helping Sergeant Martinez reclaim his sense of agency and strength. By the end of the session, he might remember the same events but feel different about them. Proud of his survival, grateful for his courage, ready to reclaim his life. Chapter 8: Myths, Movies, and Misconceptions. The clock on the wall shows 11:47 p.m. as Jennifer sits in her darkened living room, remote in hand, channel surfing through late-night television. Suddenly, she stops on a black-and-white thriller from the 1940s. On screen, a sinister man with hypnotic eyes is swinging a pocket watch in front of a helpless woman. "You are getting sleepy," he intones in a thick Eastern European accent. "Very sleepy. When you wake up, you will rob the bank and bring me all the money, and you will remember nothing of this conversation." Jennifer shivers despite the warm room. This is the hypnosis of popular culture, dark, manipulative, all-powerful. It's an image that has been reinforced by decades of movies, television shows, and novels, creating a mythology around hypnosis that bears little resemblance to reality. Let's step into the writer's room of a Hollywood studio in 1942, where screenwriters are crafting the script for a psychological thriller. They need a plot device that allows their villain to control people's minds, to make them commit crimes against their will, to turn innocent victims into unwitting accomplices. Hypnosis, with its air of mystery and its association with the occult, fits perfectly. What if the hypnotist could make anyone do anything? One writer suggests. What if once you're hypnotized, you're completely under their power? It's a compelling premise for fiction, but it creates problems in the real world. These portrayals tap into deep human fears about free will, autonomy, and the vulnerability of our minds. They suggest that consciousness is fragile, easily manipulated, and that hypnotists possess almost supernatural powers of control. The reality is far different and in many ways far more interesting. Real hypnosis isn't about overpowering someone's will, it's about cooperating with it. You cannot be hypnotized against your wishes, and you cannot be made to do anything that violates your core values or moral beliefs. Dr. Martin Orne at the University of Pennsylvania spent years researching this question, conducting carefully controlled experiments to test the limits of hypnotic influence. His studies consistently showed that people under hypnosis retain their moral compass. They might be willing to pick up what they believe is a harmless rubber snake, but they won't pick up what they believe is a real, dangerous one, regardless of how skilled the hypnotist or how deep the trance. But the myth of hypnotic mind control persists, fueled partly by sensationalized media coverage and partly by confusion about what hypnosis actually involves. Let's examine some of the most common misconceptions. Myth: you can get stuck in hypnosis. Picture someone panicking because their friend went into hypnosis an hour ago and hasn't opened their eyes since. In reality, you can no more get stuck in hypnosis than you can get stuck daydreaming. Hypnosis is a natural state that people enter and exit constantly throughout the day. If left alone, someone in hypnosis will either drift into natural sleep and wake up normally, or they'll simply open their eyes and return to ordinary consciousness on their own. Myth: hypnosis reveals absolute truth. Countless courtroom dramas have featured hypnotized witnesses recovering suppressed memories with perfect clarity. The truth is more complex. While hypnosis can sometimes help people access forgotten details, it can also create false memories that feel completely real to the person experiencing them. The relaxed, imaginative state of hypnosis makes people more susceptible to suggestion, not more accurate in their recall. Dr. Elizabeth Loftus's groundbreaking research on false memories has shown that it's surprisingly easy to implant detailed memories of events that never happened, especially when someone is in a highly suggestible state. A hypnotized person might remember being abducted by aliens or abused as a child with the same vivid clarity as someone recalling their actual breakfast that morning. Myth: only weak-minded people can be hypnotized. This misconception is particularly ironic because research shows exactly the opposite. People with higher intelligence, greater imagination, and stronger focus tend to be better hypnotic subjects. The ability to be hypnotized requires significant mental flexibility and the capacity for sustained attention, hardly signs of a weak mind. Imagine a brilliant surgeon who can enter deep hypnosis to manage her own chronic back pain, or a successful attorney who uses self-hypnosis to overcome his fear of flying. These individuals aren't mentally weak. They're psychologically sophisticated enough to use altered states of consciousness as tools for self-improvement. Let's visit the office of Dr. Amanda Foster, a hypnotherapist who's been practicing for 20 years. She's explaining these realities to Tom, a skeptical businessman who's considering hypnosis for stress management but worries about losing control. Tom, think about the last time you were completely absorbed in a good book, Dr. Foster says, settling into her chair across from him. You probably lost track of time, maybe didn't hear someone calling your name. You were so focused on the story that the world around you seemed to fade away. That's a hypnotic state, and you went into it naturally, by choice. Tom nods slowly, remembering countless evenings lost in novels, his wife having to tap him on the shoulder to get his attention. In therapeutic hypnosis, I'm simply your guide into that focused state, Dr. Foster continues. I can't make you do anything you don't want to do, any more than a book can force you to keep reading if you decide to put it down. You're always in control of how deep you go, and whether you want to follow my suggestions. This is the reality of modern hypnosis, collaborative rather than controlling, empowering rather than overpowering. The hypnotist serves more as a skilled guide than a puppet master, helping people access their own inner resources for healing and change. But Hollywood's dramatic portrayals aren't entirely without basis. There have been unethical practitioners throughout history who have exploited the trust and vulnerability inherent in the therapeutic relationship. The infamous case of the hillside strangler Kenneth Bianchi, who claimed to have multiple personalities that emerged under hypnosis, highlighted how the techniques could potentially be misused or manipulated for personal gain. These cases led to important ethical guidelines and professional standards that govern the practice of hypnosis today. Licensed professionals are required to obtain informed consent, maintain appropriate boundaries, and use hypnosis only within their scope of practice. The entertainment industry has also evolved in its portrayal of hypnosis. Modern films like Get Out use hypnosis as a metaphor for social control and racial oppression, while shows like The Mentalist feature characters who use psychological techniques that are closer to real influence and persuasion than mystical mind control. Perhaps the most persistent myth about hypnosis is that it's somehow supernatural or mystical. This belief persists partly because the experience can feel magical, the sudden absence of chronic pain, the dissolution of phobias that have persisted for decades, the ability to access memories or insights that seemed beyond reach. But there's nothing supernatural about hypnosis. It's a natural function of human consciousness, as normal as sleeping, dreaming, or falling into deep concentration. The magic lies not in mysterious forces, but in the remarkable plasticity of the human mind, its ability to rewire itself, heal itself, and transform itself through focused attention and imagination. Chapter 9: The Everyday Trance. It's 7:30 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Sarah's hands rest lightly on the steering wheel as she navigates the familiar route to work, the same path she's driven hundreds of times before. The radio plays softly in the background, something about morning traffic and weather, but she's not really listening. Her mind drifts to the presentation she's giving later, then to her daughter's soccer game this weekend, then to whether she remembered to turn off the coffee maker. Suddenly, she's pulling into her office parking lot with no clear memory of the 20-minute drive. She didn't fall asleep at the wheel or lose consciousness. She was aware of other cars, responded appropriately to traffic lights, even avoided a squirrel that darted into the road. Yet somehow the journey passed in a kind of blur, an automatic pilot mode that millions of people experience every day. Welcome to highway hypnosis, one of the most common trance states in modern life. This phenomenon occurs when repetitive tasks become so routine that our conscious mind disengages, allowing deeper, more automatic mental processes to take over. It's the same mechanism that allows experienced pianists to play complex pieces while carrying on conversations, or skilled typists to produce perfect documents while thinking about something entirely different. But highway hypnosis is just one example of the trance states that weave through our daily lives like invisible threads. Right now, as you listen to these words, you might notice how your breathing has naturally synchronized with the rhythm of the narrative. Your eyelids might feel slightly heavier than they did when we began. This isn't sleepiness, It's the gentle onset of what researchers call narrative transportation, the mild trance state that occurs when we become deeply absorbed in a story. Children are natural masters of trance states. Watch a 5-year-old playing with dolls, completely absorbed in an imaginary world where plastic figures have rich emotional lives and complex relationships. The child's breathing might slow, her posture might relax, and she'll become so focused on the play scenario that she doesn't hear her mother calling for dinner. This isn't inattention. It's the hypnotic state that allows deep learning and creativity to flourish. Dr. Josephine Hilgard at Stanford University spent decades studying these naturally occurring trance states. She discovered that people who easily enter formal hypnosis are often those who frequently experience what she called absorption experiences in daily life. They're the ones who lose themselves in music, who become completely engrossed in movies, who can stare at ocean waves or flickering flames for long periods without boredom. Let's step into a university lecture hall where Dr. Michael Chen, a psychology professor, is explaining this concept to his students. How many of you have ever been reading a book and realized you've read the same paragraph 3 times without comprehension? He asks. Nearly every hand goes up. That's a mini-trance state, he explains. Your eyes were moving across the words, your brain was processing the letters and turning them into sounds, but your deeper attention was elsewhere. You were present but not present, aware but not aware. The students nod in recognition. They've all experienced this divided consciousness, this ability to function on multiple levels simultaneously. Religious and spiritual practices around the world rely heavily on these naturally occurring trance states. The repetitive chanting in Buddhist meditation, the swaying and singing in gospel churches, the rhythmic prayers of Islamic dhikr, all of these practices are designed to shift consciousness into states where ordinary mental barriers dissolve and deeper experiences become possible. Father Thomas Keating, a Trappist monk who developed the practice of centering prayer, describes it as a movement beyond conversation with Christ to communion with Christ. This communion occurs in a state that's remarkably similar to hypnosis: relaxed awareness, diminished self-consciousness, and openness to experiences that transcend ordinary thinking. The whirling dervishes of the Sufi tradition achieve ecstatic states through repetitive spinning that induces what can only be described as religious hypnosis. Their consciousness shifts as they turn, their sense of separate self dissolving into unity with the divine. The physical motion becomes a pathway to altered states of awareness that mystics have sought for centuries. But you don't need to be religious to experience these transcendent trance states. Athletes often describe being in the zone, a state of effortless performance where conscious thought disappears, and the body seems to move with perfect precision and timing. Basketball players talk about the basket looking as big as a hula hoop. Tennis players describe hitting shots without thinking. Runners report feeling like they could run forever. Dr. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi has studied these experiences extensively, calling them flow states. When people are in flow, time seems to change. Hours can feel like minutes, or seconds can stretch into eternity. Self-consciousness vanishes. The boundary between person and activity dissolves. These are all characteristics of hypnotic consciousness, achieved not through formal induction, but through the natural progression of focused attention and skilled practice. Artists know these states intimately. The painter who loses track of time while working on a canvas, the writer who looks up to discover that 6 hours have passed in what felt like minutes, the musician who improvises complex solos without conscious planning, all are experiencing forms of creative hypnosis. Maya Angelou described her writing process in terms that any hypnotherapist would recognize. I go into a room, I sit down, and I open myself up. I become completely vulnerable. The story tells itself to me. I don't think about it, I just write it down. This surrender of conscious control, this receptive openness to unconscious wisdom, is the essence of creative trance. Even our daily routines contain hypnotic elements. The repetitive motions of washing dishes, the rhythmic sound of a washing machine, the gentle back and forth motion of rocking a baby to sleep, all of these activities can induce mild trance states that are deeply restorative and healing. Modern life, with its constant stimulation and digital distractions, often interferes with these natural rhythms of consciousness. We check our phones compulsively, multitask frantically, and maintain a state of perpetual alert attention that can be exhausting. Learning to recognize and cultivate healthy trance states, whether through formal meditation, creative activities, or simply allowing ourselves to daydream, becomes an essential skill for psychological well-being. Chapter 10: The Digital Age and Virtual Hypnosis. The notification ping draws Jessica's attention away from her laptop screen for the 15th time this hour. She glances at her phone, another social media alert, another email, another demand for her attention. But tonight, she's trying something different. She opens an app called Deep Sleep Hypnosis and scrolls through dozens of soothing voices offering everything from confidence building to pain management. Welcome to hypnosis in the digital age, where ancient healing practices meet cutting-edge technology, and where the intimate relationship between hypnotist and client is being reimagined through screens, speakers, and virtual reality headsets. Dr. Rachel Kim's research lab at MIT looks more like a high-tech gaming center than a traditional psychology clinic. Participants wear VR headsets that transport them to serene virtual environments, perhaps a moonlit beach where gentle waves lap at the shore, or a misty forest glade where sunlight filters through ancient trees. As they explore these digital sanctuaries, her voice guides them through hypnotic inductions that feel remarkably similar to in-person sessions. The brain doesn't distinguish clearly between virtual and real experiences, Dr. Kim explains to a group of visiting researchers. When someone sees a virtual spider while wearing a VR headset, their phobia response is just as intense as if they encountered a real spider. We can use this to our advantage in hypnosis, creating immersive environments that enhance suggestibility and deepen trance states. Her current study involves treating combat veterans with PTSD using what she calls therapeutic virtual reality hypnosis. Veterans can revisit traumatic environments in a safe, controlled way, processing their experiences while surrounded by supportive virtual imagery and guided by hypnotic suggestions for healing and integration. Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez, who served 3 tours in Iraq, describes her experience. When I put on that headset, I could go back to that marketplace in Baghdad where my convoy was attacked. But this time, I wasn't alone and helpless. Dr. Kim's voice was with me, and the virtual environment kept showing me images of safety and strength. I could face what happened without being overwhelmed by it. The democratization of hypnosis through digital platforms has created unprecedented access to these healing techniques. Apps like Calm, Headspace, and specialized hypnosis programs have made it possible for millions of people to experience guided trance states from the privacy of their homes, often at a fraction of the cost of traditional therapy. But this accessibility comes with both benefits and challenges. Dr. Stephen Gurjevich, who has been creating audio hypnosis programs since the 1980s, has watched the field evolve from cassette tapes to streaming services. The core principles remain the same, he notes, but the delivery mechanisms have become incredibly sophisticated. Modern hypnosis apps use artificial intelligence to customize sessions based on user feedback, biometric data from wearable devices, and even analysis of voice patterns to determine optimal timing and content. Some programs can detect when a user is entering deeper states of relaxation and automatically adjust the pace and tone of suggestions accordingly. Imagine opening a hypnosis app that has learned your patterns over months of use. It knows that you respond best to sessions between 8 and 9 p.m., that nature sounds work better for you than music, that progressive muscle relaxation helps you reach deeper states than breathing exercises alone. The AI creates a personalized session just for you, adjusting in real time based on your heart rate variability and other physiological markers. But can digital hypnosis truly replace the human connection that has been central to hypnotic healing for millennia? Dr. Patricia Carrington, a pioneer in meditation and self-hypnosis research, offers a nuanced perspective. Technology can deliver excellent hypnotic inductions and suggestions, but it can't provide the intuitive responsiveness of a skilled human practitioner. However, it can make these techniques available to people who might never otherwise have access to them. The COVID-19 pandemic accelerated the adoption of teletherapy and virtual hypnosis sessions, forcing practitioners to adapt their skills to video platforms. Many discovered that online hypnosis could be surprisingly effective, with some clients actually preferring the comfort and privacy of their own homes to clinical settings. Dr. Mark Jensen at the University of Washington has been conducting clinical trials comparing in-person and online hypnosis for chronic pain management. The results are remarkably similar, he reports. Pain reduction, improved sleep, better quality of life. The benefits are consistent regardless of whether the session happens face-to-face or through a screen. However, the proliferation of digital hypnosis content has also raised concerns about quality control and safety. Unlike licensed therapists who must meet strict educational and ethical standards, anyone can create and distribute hypnosis recordings. Some apps make unrealistic promises about overnight transformations or guaranteed results, potentially misleading vulnerable users. The most exciting developments are emerging at the intersection of hypnosis and neurofeedback technology. Researchers are developing systems that can monitor brainwave activity in real time and adjust hypnotic inductions accordingly. These neuroresponsive programs can detect when someone is achieving optimal trance states and provide immediate feedback to enhance the experience. Dr. Judith Karp at Saybrook University is pioneering the use of EEG headsets combined with VR hypnosis for treating anxiety disorders. We can actually see when someone's brain is shifting into more relaxed patterns, she explains. The visual feedback helps them learn to achieve these states more quickly and reliably. Imagine wearing a lightweight headset that monitors your brainwaves while you experience a virtual reality hypnosis session. As your mind settles into deeper relaxation, the virtual environment responds. Perhaps the lighting becomes softer, the sounds more melodic, the imagery more vivid and engaging. Your brain learns to associate these changes with deeper states of consciousness, creating a feedback loop that enhances the hypnotic experience. The gaming industry is also exploring applications of hypnotic techniques. Some meditation and wellness games incorporate elements of hypnotic induction, repetitive visual patterns, binaural beats, and progressive relaxation exercises to help players achieve states of focused attention and stress relief. But perhaps the most intriguing development is the emergence of AI-powered virtual hypnotherapists that can engage in natural conversation while guiding users through therapeutic processes. These sophisticated programs can ask questions, respond to user feedback, and even detect emotional states through voice analysis and facial recognition. Dr. Ellie, an AI therapist developed at USC, uses natural language processing to conduct therapy sessions that feel remarkably human. While not specifically designed for hypnosis, the technology demonstrates the potential for AI systems that could provide personalized, responsive hypnotic experiences tailored to individual needs and preferences. As we look toward the future, the boundaries between human and artificial intelligence in therapeutic settings are likely to blur even further. We might see AI assistants that can provide basic hypnotic interventions while seamlessly transferring complex cases to human practitioners, or virtual reality environments so sophisticated that they induce profound trance states through sensory immersion alone. Chapter 11: The Future of Consciousness Exploration. In a quiet research laboratory at Johns Hopkins University, Dr. Sarah Martinez adjusts the settings on a device that looks like something from a science fiction movie. Her volunteer participant, wearing what appears to be a sleek swimming cap studded with sensors, settles into a comfortable recliner. On multiple monitors around the room, real-time images of brain activity pulse and flow like aurora displays, showing the intricate dance of neurons as consciousness shifts and transforms. "We're witnessing the birth of precision hypnosis," Dr. Martinez explains to her research assistant. "Instead of using one-size-fits-all inductions, we're developing personalized protocols based on each individual's unique neural patterns and psychological profile. This is the cutting edge of consciousness research, where ancient practices meet technologies that would have seemed magical just decades ago. Scientists are mapping the neural networks of hypnosis with unprecedented detail, discovering that what we've long called a single phenomenon is actually a constellation of different states, each with its own signature patterns of brain activity. Dr. David Spiegel's team at Stanford has identified at least 3 distinct neural networks that become active during hypnosis. The first involves focused attention and sensory processing. This is where the hypnotized person becomes absorbed in the hypnotist's voice while peripheral awareness fades. The second network governs cognitive control and self-monitoring, explaining why hypnotized individuals can accept suggestions that would normally seem illogical. The third involves the sense of agency and self-awareness, which becomes dramatically altered in deep trance states. But the future of hypnosis extends far beyond better understanding of brain mechanisms. Researchers are exploring applications that would have seemed impossible just a generation ago. Dr. Alina Kuzminski at the University of California, San Francisco is investigating whether hypnosis combined with precision medicine could enhance cancer treatment outcomes. Her preliminary studies suggest that patients who use self-hypnosis alongside chemotherapy show improved immune responses and fewer side effects. "We're not just treating the cancer," she explains. "We're optimizing the entire healing environment within the patient's body and mind." The integration of hypnosis with genetic research is opening entirely new frontiers. Scientists have discovered that hypnotic suggestions can influence gene expression, the process by which our DNA instructions are translated into cellular activity. Dr. Richard Davidson's lab at the University of Wisconsin has shown that meditation and hypnosis can literally change which genes are turned on or off, affecting everything from inflammation responses to stress hormone production. Imagine a future where your genetic profile determines not just your risk for certain diseases, but also your optimal hypnotic protocols. Someone with genetic variants associated with high anxiety might receive different suggestions and induction techniques than someone predisposed to depression or chronic pain. This personalized approach could dramatically improve treatment outcomes while reducing the trial-and-error process that currently characterizes much of therapeutic intervention. The field of epigenetics, the study of how environmental factors influence gene expression, is revealing that our thoughts, emotions, and experiences literally reshape our biology. Hypnosis, with its unique ability to access and influence unconscious processes, may represent one of the most powerful tools for directing these epigenetic changes in healing directions. Dr. Candice Pert's groundbreaking research on the molecules of emotion showed that our thoughts and feelings create biochemical cascades throughout our bodies. Hypnotic states, characterized by deep relaxation and positive suggestion, may optimize these molecular communications, creating healing environments at the cellular level. But perhaps the most exciting developments are emerging from the intersection of hypnosis and artificial intelligence. Researchers are developing AI systems that can analyze thousands of variables, voice patterns, physiological responses, eye movements, even subtle changes in facial expressions, to predict who will respond best to different types of hypnotic interventions. Dr. Michael Gazzaniga's laboratory at UC Santa Barbara has created machine learning algorithms that can identify optimal hypnotic techniques for specific individuals within minutes of initial assessment. The AI analyzes factors like personality traits, learning style, cultural background, and neurological patterns to recommend personalized treatment protocols. We're moving toward a world where hypnosis becomes as precise as surgery, Dr. Gazzaniga explains. Instead of generic suggestions, we'll have laser-targeted interventions designed specifically for each person's unique psychological and neurological architecture. Virtual and augmented reality technologies are creating possibilities for hypnotic experiences that were previously impossible. Researchers are developing environments where patients can literally walk through representations of their own bodies, visualizing healing at the cellular level, or explore metaphorical landscapes that represent their psychological challenges and resources. Dr. Skip Rizzo at USCS Institute for Creative Technologies has created virtual reality systems for treating PTSD that combine exposure therapy with hypnotic techniques. Veterans can revisit traumatic environments while receiving real-time biofeedback and hypnotic suggestions for processing and integration. The technology allows for precise control over the intensity and duration of exposure, optimizing therapeutic outcomes while minimizing re-traumatization. Imagine donning a VR headset and finding yourself in a three-dimensional representation of your own immune system, watching white blood cells patrol your bloodstream like microscopic guardians. Hypnotic suggestions guide you to visualize these cells becoming stronger and more effective, while biofeedback monitors confirm that your actual immune markers are responding to the visualization. The future of hypnosis may also involve direct neural interfaces, brain-computer connections that could enhance or bypass traditional induction methods. Early research with transcranial stimulation suggests that targeted electrical or magnetic fields can induce brain states similar to hypnosis without verbal induction. Dr. Alvaro Pascualion's work at Harvard Medical School has shown that specific patterns of magnetic stimulation can temporarily alter consciousness in ways that mimic hypnotic states. While still in early experimental stages, these techniques could eventually provide rapid access to therapeutic trance states for people who have difficulty responding to traditional hypnosis. But with these powerful new capabilities come important ethical considerations. As we develop more sophisticated tools for influencing consciousness and behavior, questions about consent, autonomy, and potential misuse become increasingly critical. The World Health Organization has begun developing guidelines for the ethical use of consciousness-altering technologies in healthcare settings. These guidelines address concerns about informed consent, practitioner training, and safeguards against exploitation or manipulation. Dr. Arthur Kaplan, a leading medical ethicist at NYU, warns that the power to directly influence neural activity through technology must be balanced with robust protections for individual autonomy. We need to ensure that advances in consciousness research serve to enhance human flourishing, rather than create new forms of control or manipulation. The future may also bring deeper understanding of consciousness itself. Hypnosis research is contributing to broader questions about the nature of awareness, free will, and the relationship between mind and brain. Some scientists speculate that studying hypnotic states could provide insights into fundamental questions about human consciousness and its place in the universe. Dr. Christoph Koch at the Allen Institute for Brain Science suggests that hypnosis offers a unique window into what he calls the neural correlates of consciousness. the specific brain patterns that give rise to subjective experience. By studying how consciousness changes during hypnosis, we're learning about consciousness itself, he explains. As we look toward the future, hypnosis seems poised to evolve from an art practiced by skilled individuals into a precision science supported by advanced technology. Yet at its heart, it will likely remain what it has always been, a fundamentally human experience of connection, healing, and transformation. The ancient shamans who first discovered the power of trance states could never have imagined brain scanners or virtual reality headsets, but they would recognize the essential elements: the trusted guide, the relaxed recipient, the journey into altered states of awareness, and the emergence of healing and insight that seemed impossible in ordinary consciousness. Tonight, we've traveled together through the fascinating world of hypnosis. We've journeyed from ancient temple healers to cutting-edge neuroscience laboratories, discovering that this mysterious art of consciousness has been with humanity since our earliest days. Whether it's the shell-shocked soldier finding peace through trance, the chronic pain sufferer discovering relief, or simply you losing yourself in a good book, hypnosis reveals itself as a natural, healing capacity we all possess. Perhaps you're noticing how naturally your mind's beginning to drift, how easily you're slipping between waking and dreaming. These transitions are invitations, doorways to that same mysterious realm where healing happens, where change becomes possible, where the impossible sometimes becomes inevitable. Until we meet again in these quiet hours, may your dreams be peaceful, your rest be deep, and wake refreshed, knowing that wonder is always waiting to be discovered.